get it. The OGs always told me what I start, I gotta finish. So I push it to the limit, so I can be the greatest. So I can look my family in their eyes and say we made it. Don't let life hand you nothing, you just gotta go take it. Always keep it 100, don't ever let me catch you faking. Keep a close eye on your circle.
Hey, y'all, welcome to the Post Prison Podcast, episode 9, February the 4th, 2023. Can you believe we already in the second month? I'm your host, Darryl Riley, businessman and entrepreneur. Joining me today, as always, is my sister in this work, my ride or die, Miss Cynthia Brady. And a special uncommon link today we got in the chain is a sister who I have a lot of respect for because of the way she presents herself and her presence, Mrs. Lucretia Robertson.
Hello.
Welcome, lady. Glad
Thank
glad to
you.
glad to have you with us. Uh, Before we begin, I kind of want to restate our purpose on the Post Prison Podcast, and that's to illuminate not only prisons of incarceration, physical prisons, but all different kinds of prisons as it relates to people of color in particular and everybody else. So we're going in that same direction today to look at some different kinds of prisons. What our purpose is not here is to argue, to defame, to no gotcha moments, nobody to get nobody caught up. We're here to have substantive discussions as it pertains to the things that particularly affects us as people of color and how we can empower ourselves to move past those. Uh, Today, though, we have Sister Lucretia Robertson, who's a powerhouse in the community. I will add, wife of Jason Robertson,
Oh, thank you for
who's
recognizing that.
yeah, of course, who's the son of somebody's dear to my heart, Pastor Bishop Robinson, who's no longer with us. I'm gonna read your bio a little bit so we could get these people up to speed in terms of your subject matter expertise here. So, as a strategic leader and advocate for equity, Lucretia has followed hard the call to be a purveyor of hope. That call has always informed her journey in so many ways, and at the heart of her belief that, among other things, her purpose is to be a talent cultivator and change instigator. She's deeply interested in ensuring Black and Brown women make and take space as their own advocates. And she's fortunate to have those opportunities to connect with women to what matters to them. She's the principal owner of Clarity Partnerships, a Black-owned, women-led micro consultancy firm that works with organizations desiring to elevate women's visibility within leadership. More recently, she's the founder of Women Who Rise, a nonprofit dedicated to elevating women-powered leadership by providing women of color in informal and formal leadership roles access to positive mentorship, leadership development, board governance training, and tools for confident and resilient leadership. She's even more excited to have ventured into podcasting herself. Her show, Unapologetically Fierce, launches this month in February with the hope of creating positive, supportive space for women to go from stuck and struggling to unapologetically fierce leaders. On the show, she talks about her journey as a woman, leader of color, navigating growth and integrating faith. Although she has a lot on her plate, she's deeply honored to be juggling speaking, entrepreneurship, service, and family. She loves fried rice, banana pancakes, police procedurals like CSI in elementary, coffee, coffee, coffee for the third time, and a sunny day above 75 degrees. She has two super intelligent, outspoken, and judgy daughters who I hope will one day use their voices to instigate change where it's needed. Uh, so,
Thank you.
so many things to unpack there. I wonder where them two daughters got it from, though.
Huh.
So that's cool. I got one too, and I'm proud of her unspoken voice. She won't be treated anyway, even by
right.
me. So she ain't going for that. So I'm really proud of that. What I pulled out of your bio, what popped into my head was three things: advocate for equity, elevating women's visibility, and developing leader and leadership, which equals empowerment. Um, those things just kind of stuck out to me as you done dug your foundation in the sand to go in that direction. Um, so how I kind of want to approach that and what you do. Of course, we've always been looked at as second class citizens, particularly women of color. And, of course, our past, the history of slavery and all that, that's horrific, if you really know the history of it. But what I like to ask you is starting off. Well, let me start before I ask you a question. How about you introduce yourself to the people, say hello, and then Cynthia, tell us about your weekend so we can get everybody in.
So Darryl, I think you pretty much captured everything that was in my bio. I will give a shout out to three folks who are visioning with me on Women Who Rise. And so that's Monica Houston, Tessa Sayers, and my sister, Stacey Robertson. When I called to ask, would they be willing to vision with me, they said yes. They were excited. And so I think it's important to give them credit. I will say this, that women in general, Black women specifically, are pretty much seen historically and by the world as likely the lowest class citizen. Like the last to get our voting rights, the last to be seen as humans, the last to have opportunities to share their voice in legislation, things of that nature. So for me, that's really important because Darryl and Cynthia, I know that through your own experiences in life, you've seen how the history of this country continues to be present and dominant in certain sectors and industries. And that's true for women. Specifically for me, I think about the workplace, how women of color are often overlooked
Yeah.
and undervalued. And so for me, one of my core beliefs is that everyone deserves to eat and to live and to have health insurance and to feel safe. And work is a way that we go about doing that. So that's why my work centers around that. And I don't have to say that it centers around that also because that's been my experience where I didn't feel seen, I didn't feel valued. I've had, instances of being called nigger. I've had instances of being treated like you can't possibly be smart enough. I've had instances in college where professors were like, "Did you actually write this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really? Did you actually write this? Are you sure you didn't copy this from somebody else?" Trying to one over me. So in any case, that's why I'm fired up about women, and particularly Black and brown women,
Yeah.
because we need to be helping one another. We need to be helping one another.
All right, Cynthia. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is.
Yep. Good afternoon.
I know you yourself do a lot of empowering, uh, male and female in the space that you're in. How has that really impacted you?
I love seeing people succeed or even do better, and the things that I've been through in my life has always caused me to always want to help push people, empower people, or even encourage them to do better. We had just this past weekend, we just had, well, Friday, we just had a training session on trauma informed care. And when you listen to people and you hear what they have to say about trauma informed care, I hear, what they're saying, but in a way I'm like, people don't really realize how much trauma that African Americans have been through, and that you cannot address everybody's trauma the same.
Mm,
You have to know basically um, more about that person and where that person came from, and how to encourage that person. And so it was a good training session. One of the things that I learned the most about that training session was that the way I do my counseling Um, it's effective, but it could be more effective if I was able to help write maybe some policies and have some
Mhm.
policies change. Uh,
Yeah, of course, of course.
yeah,
Mhm.
because certain things are written, and I don't think there was any African Americans at the table
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
when it was written.
of course. I mean, most of these things that we find ourselves fighting for a space in, it hasn't been welcome arms. That's why it's a fight for us, because these institutions still exist. I will say, leading into what Lucretia does, it got me to thinking about what are some of the greatest barriers today that cause us not to be empowered or impactful, and are those barriers the same as what they once were? And um, what brought me to that point, I've been doing a lot of reading on that Willie Lynch letter I spoke to you all about. And just for everybody that isn't aware, we won't go into it, but there's a book called The Willie Lynch Letter: The Making of a Slave, and where the word lynching actually comes from. And it talks about the slave owners having revolts on the farm and on the plantations, and they brought this guy over from the West Indies to show them his methods to keep the slaves in line. And once you read the context of his letter, it was all based upon distrust, teaching us to distrust one another. And one of the things that struck me is in the letter, it said, if you follow these instructions to the letter, you will be capable of maintaining this type of attitude amongst the slaves for thousands of years.
Mhm.
And I see some of the same distrustful behavior today in us towards us, right? Like I can come in the room, Cynthia, and I can tell you, well, first of all, you're the only black in the room, and I come in the room, and then somebody will say something, and I can say, well, the answer to that is 2 + 2 is 4. Where innately, you're not going to believe me. You're just not. You're going to have this thought in your head, and until one of them white people confirm what I just said, most of the times, only then will you believe me and allow me to have some validity. So, in knowing that whether that is true or not, the effects of what that book says is 100% true. So, I'd like to ask Lucretia, does our past play a role in that innate distrust? And should we begin there as we work on what you talked about, advocating for equity, elevating women's visibility? How do we tackle those issues before we actually go into them spaces to elevate ourselves?
Yeah, I'm gonna start talking, Darryl. So if I start talking too long, cut me off.
No, do your thing.
Okay. So, and you may have to repeat the question. For me, this ties to what Cynthia said, in that we have experienced trauma to the extent that our body holds the memory of that. So,
Mm,
yes, the trauma shows up in that my body is saying, I need to survive. I need to survive, and I'm in competition with Cynthia and Darryl. I'm going to do all the things I need to do so that I survive, even though that means Cynthia and Darryl don't.
mm,
So I will say, like neurologically, yes, I think the past shows up, and that is a way in which we remain untrusting of one another. But I also think our history of slavery in this country and our history with legislation that has um, supported lifting up one group over the other has also contributed to this feeling, this notion, this practice of not trusting one another, right? I have had relationships with people of color, Black women, who have basically told me to my face that they trust white women more than they trust Black women, because they feel as if Black women don't know what they're talking about. They're just out to get for themselves. We know the term crabs in a barrel. I think that came from what's the book? I can't Up from Slavery. I feel like that was a term Douglas wrote in that book. So if we think about how our history shows up in our present, it's always there.
Mm.
Cynthia knows this. This is her work. This is what she just shared she learned. Our present is always there. It's that awareness of recognizing that I don't trust my people, not because I've had a bad experience, but because I've come to believe something taught to me,
Wow.
right? It's this internalized racism, internalized
Wow.
hatred. I've come to believe something about a group of people that, quite honestly, is not true. And
Mhm.
if we want to talk about people lying to one another, everybody does it sometimes. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not just a Black thing. It's not just women. It's not, it happens to us. But I think in our mind, we have determined, like we hold on to this belief. And there's a whole there's a whole thought process that goes into, I have a belief, and there's certain filters that that thought process goes through, and then that belief is reinforced. So, we might have one bad relationship, my dude did me wrong, or my girlfriend, um, she lied behind my back, and all of a sudden it's all Black people are like
I
this.
ain't dating no more Black women.
I ain't dating Black women. I don't like Black men, or they're all dogs, that kind of stuff. That's not true. It's not true. But we hold on to these beliefs because of the different ways that we've experienced trauma, or we've had a bad script written into our life, our gene, our history, and we just follow that script blindly. I've been guilty.
Yeah.
I've been very guilty, but I know better now. So, in the past, maybe when I was younger, I was taught, you don't go, when you go in the store, don't go on the line with the Black person because they're not going to do you right. Go on the line with the white folks. Now I purposely will seek them
Yeah.
out. I'll be
Yeah.
like, no, I want that person over there to help me. Because if
Yeah.
anybody's going to lift somebody up, it should be us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cynthia, what do you think about us starting with ourselves and our past trauma before moving to anything else?
We have to deal with our own trauma because um we're the only ones that basically know where it comes from. And sometimes we don't, and we have to do a lot of searching to figure out where it came from. A lot of time it's historical, and so we have to really examine, the history of our trauma, and also find tools to be able to work through it, or to be able to heal from the different traumas we've been through. And the crazy thing is that I have been through so many different traumatic situations that I am still healing and still working on things uh historically.
Yeah. Well, so for me, understanding, like Lucretia stated, is basically I know a little better now, and my goal is to lift us up. But I find odd for me. I see us, we sensationalize, like the brother just got beat by the police. I have yet to watch that.
Yeah.
I've had that happen to me before. I don't watch Django, 12 Years a Slave. I don't do that. I don't think that, why should I re-anger myself and re-traumatize myself when I already know how it feels?
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is going to
I
be to you. Go ahead,
I
Cynthia.
noticed that when when a lot of Black people start really coming out and start saying, well, I'm woke, and started really doing more research into our history and other things like that, I started noticing how prevalent those type of movies and those type of situations start appearing. And I'm like you, I don't need to watch that. I pretty much know, and can see what has happened. I've seen some of like Roots and all that stuff from the past and stuff. And back then it did anger me. Now I don't watch that stuff because I already know there's nothing we can do about the past, but there is definitely something we can do about going forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I just I find that to be really, really You know, it's almost like we sensationalize our trauma, you know, and make it a story all over again when we say we're working on healing. You know, I just can't find that art. And what really what another thing that I find that hinders our work in this, we'll take this community for example. We have a lot of beautiful, well-meaning people who aren't Black working on the issues as it pertains to Black people. And what happens is uh, that Willie Lynch syndrome. Those people aren't aware of that. Those people aren't aware of they probably never heard of the Willie Lynch letter or the impacts of it, right? And they wonder why it's this friction in the room. You know, they can't figure it out. And for us to be in this space today where it's about equity, it's about fairness for people of color, we have a responsibility to work on our healing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm finding I'm healing and I'm working on but can't nobody say nothing to you without you being triggered just because you don't like it. And all of that is part of what we're discussing here. So my
But
question is,
Darryl, we are what I believe is at the heart of it is that we are trying to claim space and identity. We have had nothing for hundreds of years.
That's good.
You see why it's a big deal when they say the first Black something something. It's a big deal because we've never had space. We've never had identity that wasn't tied to hardship and oppression.
Wow.
And so now it's a big deal. And in some healthy ways, we're really aspiring to claim our space and put our name as Black people on things. But in unhealthy ways, it's that whole clamoring, like, I need to carve this out for myself. Because if I don't carve it out for myself, I won't get credit. I won't have that identity. And you see in some cultures, sometimes even in Black culture, it's a big deal to have a name and a title. Like, that's such a big deal. Then I move into other spaces and they don't care nothing about that. Go to Native American spaces and gatherings and meetings. Do you know who they give honor to? They give honor to their
ancestors. Absolutely.
They're not talking about I'm such and such and I got this and I got 15 degrees. I paid $1 million. You owe me respect because of my titles. So I think for us, that's part of the trauma, Cynthia, is wanting to claim space and identity for ourselves. And in unhealthy ways, we're hurting one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I totally agree.
Well, you know, trying to claim space it's in today's world. We don't have to really claim space and fight for it. There's so many vast opportunities to do so much.
That's your rational mind speaking, Darryl. But some people in trauma, there is no rational mind. There's no.
Well, I do think, and this is kind of veering off to something else. I do think the space I speak from, right, as a male, I'm of the belief, male or female, I mean, gay or straight, if you are a male, a few things you aren't allowed that the female species are allowed in some cases. And, you know, I don't think excuses or your feelings are two of those things that should be allowed. Yeah, we have to get in touch with those things. But for the most part, we ain't showing up as men and being held accountable. You said it earlier about women being the last to vote and all these things. But right now, y'all are killing the game. You're the most educated. You're the highest earners. If you out on the street in the morning, you look on the bus stops, you look on the freeway, you look all up and down, all you see is women going to work, women doing these things. So, you know, men have to find themselves. My next question is, and
let me say something before you ask the next question. One of the things that I realized today is that it's how a person interprets their trauma. Some people don't interpret their trauma as just them being a victim. You know what I'm saying, of something, or that it depends on how they interpret it. Some people feel like they're survivors of the fittest, but then you have those that have the victim mentality but also feel like they're part of the reason that it happened to them instead of, them being
Right.
victimized.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
There's
let me be.
there's different ways people interpret their trauma.
Well, let me kind of clarify what I mean by that. Because I agree with you, but I also think that at some point you have to move. There's 5 stages of grief. There's levels to everything. So eventually you're gonna have to change them statuses. Being a survivor is beyond being a victim. You've
Mhm.
survived that. And just everything that happens in your life, it does not happen to you. It happens for you. And I'm not discounting anyone else's trauma because there's some things people went through I know are extremely traumatic. All I'm saying is a lot of times we need to find ways to move the needle a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, you accountability is key. That even in anything you do, 80% of anything is showing up. Even
Yeah.
if you show up to say I can't do it until next week.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I think it's a responsibility shared by the community. I will say that, unfortunately, because of institutional and systemic barriers that have really prevented Black and Brown people from excelling in some areas in life, there's a lack. So I'll use
mm,
an example, mental health. There are I shouldn't say very few, but there is a severe need for counselors and therapists of color.
absolutely.
And we
Yeah.
probably would have a greater number of professionals in those fields if we hadn't been held back for so long, and then had the mindset that, well, we don't have mental health issues, or who got time to be crazy, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? Nobody got time to be crazy. We got to work. We got to get the
Yeah.
two jobs in to survive. So I think the community has a responsibility to say, how do I support you so that you can move from victim to survivor as a result of your trauma? And yes, trust plays a part in that, Darryl. If we don't trust one another, there's no way I can support you because you don't trust me.
What do you mean
Tell the
by
truth.
what do you mean by community when you say the community has to come behind that
I'm
individual?
saying, I'm saying if you call yourself, because it's a privilege to be Black. I'm just gonna say.
Absolutely.
So if you call yourself a Black man or a Black woman, a Black leader or Black whatever, I think you are part of the community, and you need to be stepping up and stepping in the way that you're gifted. So let me integrate my faith. We're all gifted in a way and called to do a thing. So in the way that you're gifted, step in, step up, and be a support to those in need. Some of us are running from our calling and our assignment, or we're in our assignment, but we've monetized it so much so that Black people can't even get a leg up.
Tell the truth.
You know what I'm saying? So I think you have a responsibility. We can't be complaining about, and we're not complaining, but I'm saying we can't be complaining or enduring our own victimhood and then act like nobody else wants to help you. We want to help, but we have to be part of the solution. That's my thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you mentioned something interesting that I kind of wanted to talk on. Even in your bio, and I know you and Cynthia both are women of faith. So how do you incorporate that spiritual aspect into your training? And is that different than religion? And how so? If so?
Yeah. I don't necessarily incorporate my faith into my training.
Okay.
It is a way of being for me. That means that's the way I that's a filter by which I recognize the way I treat people, the
Mm,
way I think about people, the way I care about people, the choices that I make. That's really what I'm saying about faith. But even more so, as a Christian, the Bible calls me to fight injustice and
hmm.
oppression. Those are the
Absolutely.
pieces that sometimes we skip over in the Bible, that we have a responsibility, but that's our responsibility, because God is not pleased with injustice and oppression. He's not pleased with seeing poverty. That that doesn't give him pleasure, because we live in a world of abundance. How are there so
Mhm.
many homeless people? How are there so many sick people? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so that's where the faith piece comes in for me, because I'm reminded that I'm not just doing this for myself. I am part of the community. My gift is intended to help others. How am I helping others in a way that isn't about putting money in my pocket or
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
myself a name, but is about elevating other people? People need hope. People need hope.
There it is there. There it is there.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Cynthia and myself are in the same vein. It's about who we can help. A lot of times, because of these traumatic experiences, it doesn't always work in that manner. And everybody has their different roles and their different lanes and their different styles, and all of them are necessary. I think that's where sometimes the crash occurs. We don't realize that everybody's necessary.
Yeah.
For me, I'll just use myself. I have a track record for helping the people the church can't, and I think that's important. Um, you know,
Important and
um,
appropriate.
for people who don't go to church, that doesn't mean I don't believe in God.
That's
That
right.
just means their experiences are closely related to mine. And I know for me, I don't need coddling because I could be a mess. I need accountability. I need somebody to be on me and make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, whatever level that's on.
Right.
So I'm big on thinking that we need all. I think the problem comes in when we try to take up space and overshadow somebody else and all of that.
Yeah. Needing a platform, and where's my special chair? And
You
yeah.
hear a purple robe and all that.
I mean, look, I grew up in church. I love the church. You will not ever get me to turn my back on church or God. You will not ever get me to do that. And yet we are still broken people, and it part of an institution, bringing forward our broken, self-serving ways,
Mm.
and those need to be addressed too. There's nothing wrong with addressing those things.
I'm actually, I didn't expect you to go there, but I actually been trying to have these discussions with all the leaders of faith.
Hmm.
And it's not a matter of approach. It's not a matter of what you're saying. What I see, to be honest with you, I look in their eyes, and when I talk about restoration and talking about how you've been harmed or offended by another brother, I see fear.
Mm.
I'm talking about every preacher in this city. I have came to them with that conversation about what that would look like, and they might speak differently, but I watch your body. I know where your trauma starts at. You know what I'm saying? So
What do you think the fear is all about? Like, what do you think is behind
it's
the
it's
fear?
a predisposed the boogeyman, something that ain't even there.
Mm.
As men, we aren't necessarily emotional creatures. We're more
Mhm.
rational, if you will. And
Mhm.
we've all been taught, at least everybody 45 and over has been taught, well, don't worry about your feelings. You know what I'm saying? When
Mhm.
it and it's that kind of Willie Lynch syndrome, part
Yeah.
of that still. Uh, but for me, uh, my goal for those individuals, uh, my goal is to embarrass you in love with the truth. Because you got a lot of people whose lives you hold in their hand by the power of your words.
Yeah.
And our whole lives we've been taught by everybody that the sheep should fear the wolf, right? When
Mhm.
these days it's the shepherd that's having lamb chops every week. So who really killing the sheep?
Darryl, I would offer, and you and I both agree that we have had very different experiences with the church. So, you know,
That was nice.
we have different experiences, but I mean,
Well, I
it
like
is
that. I
what it
like
is.
that.
It is what it is. We've had very different experiences with the church. As the thing is, you're a man and I'm a woman, so that too
Mhm.
has also contributed to a very different experience with the church. Um, one of the things that I've been doing research on, just to kind of get a better understanding of where the church is today and why we are where we are, is research on Western Christianity and Christianity the way it was intended. And of course, my research took me to, and I have my notes here so I can remember, but it took me to the slave Bible.
Mm, mm,
And the slave Bible that was created with the intention of keeping
control.
Black people slaves, very specifically, um, submissive.
Mm,
And I think about how those early beginnings shaped the way Western Christianity is viewed and experienced by people of color. So it could be that what we've been taught very early on, this counterfeit Christianity, as I heard another speaker
mm.
say, is what we're operating from. And maybe when you say you're seeing fear, it's really around the unknown. Like, this is something I don't know what to do with this.
I
I don't
think
even know
there's
how to respond to this.
I think there's two things that people neglect to really think about, and it don't really have anything to do with religion. It has to do with our mindsets and our hearts.
That's good.
Our minds and our hearts. When we start changing our minds and our evil thinking and the thinking that we think about other people and all that, when we start changing that, our hearts start changing too. We have to see people like through God's eyes. And if we can't do that, we already messing up.
Mm,
We already messing up. I don't care how much you read the Bible. I don't care how much you sit in church. None of that. If your head and your heart is not changing, then you're not doing anybody a service, not even yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
well, I will say, you two ladies have really made me proud to know you. And you know that ain't just blowing smoke. I ain't. You know, it takes a lot to make me proud. I mean, incremental steps do, but I'm a big thinker kind of guy. You guys have made explosions in the community, and then it impacted a number of people and continue to do so. So, really proud to know you guys both, Lucretia. Man, just keep swinging for the fences.
Thank
Um,
you. And I
you know,
appreciate your support. When I say community, I can't, there's a lot of things that I have not been able to do had it not been for our introduction. People I would not know had it not been for, the circles that we were in together. Even just realizing some dreams that I've had and how I believe the Lord used you. You can reject that all you want to, but God will use who he wants to use when he wants to use them. But how God used you to be the conduit by which, I was able to enter into some spaces. So I appreciate you as well.
wait till I introduce you to Oprah.
I,
Oprah.
I want some of your information because I'm interested in those programs you have for women.
Oh yeah, Cynthia, we'll talk. We'll
Yeah.
definitely.
Well,
Absolutely.
we definitely up from slavery as well. We do want to support you in any capacity. You know, whatever you need
Appreciate
from
that.
us, any information we got, we could definitely
Yeah.
help you with. While I'm on the topic of up from slavery, let me just share this announcement with everybody. If you're not aware, I'm the co-founder of the Up from Slavery Initiative, a nonprofit in Bremerton, Washington, and we're having our second summit on race on March 24th at the Marvin Williams Center. And our keynote speaker will be Michael Eric Dyson. If you haven't looked at, if you don't know who that brother is, I suggest you look him up. We're expecting a powerful, impactful, uh, substantive field afternoon. And I will tell you, Lucretia, I got the phrase of I heard you mention the phrase like 2 years ago. Uh, when I just recently made that the title of our summit, Beyond Analysis Paralysis.
Oh.
I heard that phrase from you like 2 years ago.
I didn't even recognize that. Okay, now I gotta go back and look at the flyer. I did not even recognize. Okay.
Yeah, I got that from you. I was like holding on to that, and I, looking over the lay of the community, we find that last year everybody wants to talk about equity. Everybody wants to learn about what fairness looks like. Everybody wants to take some DI classes. Well, we're a year into this now,
Yeah.
and we're
Yeah.
still having these conversations and having a meeting to having a meeting to having a meeting to talk about when we're going to talk about having a meeting.
Yeah.
Getting caught up in the paralysis, analyzing the data
Yeah.
and stuff. So we want to see if we could talk about getting beyond that. We're going to have a panel of judges that I'll get to moderate, and some really exciting times. So hope you all can join us. Visit our website at ufsi.org. And Lucretia, thank you so much, sister. Really extremely proud to know you. One of the top shelf people in this city.
Thank you.
No, because I invited you in some spaces with some people, and I don't know if you had the impact that you thought you were going to have, but you did have a lasting impact that continues to go on. So you made some trails that I blazed. You've came behind them and laid down some asphalt.
Thank you, Jesus.
So now we can drive on those roads, and yeah, really big ups to you. Cynthia, you always on the move. You're always on the go. I thank you for your heart. Thank you for everything that you do. Social media, you have a whole lot of fans. You support everybody. You just love on folks, and I emulate that as much as I can. Appreciate you for being my ride or die co-host, even on the move.
Always.
Yeah.
Always your ride or die.
Yeah. Lucretia, anything you want to say to the people? Any parting messages you like?
I'm going to leave this one message for anyone, as Cynthia said, whose heart is willing. And this one message is this: to remember to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. And that's in Micah. That's
good. Yeah, again, to all of those black and white who are watching, I would also suggest that you go look up the Willie Lynch letter, The Making of a Slave, and find out where the word lynching came from and all of these things. So when you fall into these spaces with people of color and you notice some of these dynamics, you might have a little insight as to why. We'd also like you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube page and continue to support us. Until next time, peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Darryl.
Every morning I wake up, all I know is get it. The OGs always told me what I start, I gotta finish. So I push it to the limit, so I can be the greatest. So I can look my family in their eyes and say we made it. Don't let life hand you nothing, you just gotta go take it. Always keep it 100, don't ever let me catch you faking. Keep a close eye on your circle,